Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. On our agenda for today, we will talk a little bit about how an organization can be effective. Then we will take a look into how pricing plays a role into an organization. And at the end, how we can unlock value, especially when we think about pricing and when we think about the pricing tools value. To start, I'm presenting to you the McKinsey 7S model. This is the model that illustrates how effectiveness can be achieved within an organization. And it has here different elements that by cross-joining them together, in the end, they will result in more effectiveness in terms of not only communication, but also in trying to achieve these shared values and the mission of the organization. Let's take a look into each one of them. First, we have the structure, and by the structure, it means the organizational chart, so how the organization is organized and roles that different people may have within the organization. Then the strategy, and strategy can have here a connection with the competitive advantage and in the way that the organization wants to achieve their targets, their goals, which is this path to be able to achieve those goals and also why the organization wants to achieve. Then systems, and in here, of course, we are discussing a little bit more the technical infrastructure and how data and the data flows across the organization that supports not only the processes, but also the strategy execution. Skills and these capabilities that can be connected not only with people, but also with the capabilities of the organization itself, cross-joining also efforts with the systems. And then the style. Style is connected with attitude and also with the governance and the style of the governance and how leaders communicate within their teams. Staff, and by staff we have here people and the talent that is being managed through the organization. And in the end, at the center of this schema, you can see the shared values. So if everyone and all of these elements have a good communication between themselves, in the end, the mission, the policies, the objectives, and the goals of the organization will be achieved, and it will be achieved in a more effectiveness way. And pricing also has a role in this, and we will take a look how we can look at the pricing rules and the current pricing tasks. And in the end, we will be discussing a little bit how pricing can take a part in this effectiveness and trying to achieve the major goals of an organization. Let's take a look into the pricing rules and into the pricing tasks. In here, you can see at the bottom of these slides that we have an assessment in terms of pricing maturity. And this means that when companies start to think about pricing, or when they already are working with pricing, they have pricing analysts or someone who plays this role of a more operational and that execute daily support to the pricing tasks. This is connected with more of a low maturity because this rule, it's an operational rule. Normally pricing strategy is not even set it up, or it's more from this perspective of operationality. But if we ask to someone within the organization, which is their pricing strategy, it's difficult to explain. And that's why when this need of looking into pricing in a more deepest way or in a more within an ecosystem, there it has like a lack of someone which is able to define, but also to start to implement strategies and pricing tactics. And that's why when organizations think about in hiring a pricing manager, someone which is responsible to take a look into pricing, to take a look into the value of the pricing and starts to do changes. But these changes, of course, will affect different departments. And it's normal at the beginning that all the changes will affect departments in not so much positive ways if the communication is not well done. So it's critical, and at some point organizations will try to understand that something is missing, and probably it's governance or a figure that is able to cross-join or to build bridges between different departments to make sure that in the end, the pricing strategy and the pricing vision is implemented, but everyone is on board and we don't have any type of resistance or any type of different opinions that may jeopardize the pricing value. At this stage, what happens is that the pricing director is hired or promoted. It will be someone to support building the pricing vision, but also to be able to look at this vision and spread it across the organization. But that's not enough, because pricing is a science that is a bit complex, and we will need to have also reports to start to measure it based on the uplift effects, also forecast and looking at the future and understanding different pricing tactics, which impact it will have. Companies start to feel that the normal job of doing pricing at a daily level, it's not enough. So we need to understand what is going on in terms of reporting. So it will be increasing this need of having this granular reporting and understanding at, let me give you the example of at an article level, at a store level, which will be the results that is being driven by pricing. And also to start to feel the need of forecasting or projecting the future to understand different scenarios, so the what if scenarios. And at this stage, it's relevant that data science take part of the pricing strategy and of the pricing department. And these data scientists are persons that can provide insights to start to do a continuous improvement work within the pricing strategy. And when we see pricing within the organization, we can think about in which department normally pricing is working, because it does not stand for, at the beginning, the majority of the organizations does not have a single pricing department that will work pricing in an isolated way. So pricing normally starts to be part of a commercial and buying department or operations or sales, super close to the business. Then it can have both ways. It can be, as soon as we understand that pricing being led under the commercial directors or operations and sales directors, of course, in here we can have different interests. And pricing should not be influenced by these interests, should be like an exempt entity. In the end, it starts to be assessed by the organizations if the pricing people should migrate to a different department, if it should stay within these commercial operations and sales department. So we can have also pricing being worked under the finance and controlling departments, or in the marketing area, because sometimes when we think about pricing within the marketing, first of all, is one of the marketing components. But second, it's an area that is more close to the customer and to CRM departments. It's not an area that under marketing will be thriving for margin or will be thriving for revenue. It will be more a department that will work towards both. It can have the case where pricing starts to be too complex and managing a lot of historical databases. When we start to think about pricing models and elasticity, it gets too much complexity in there. So organizations may think that probably makes sense to have pricing under the BI and data department. And in the end, since pricing is a little bit of all of the departments that we already figure out, it can have its own department. So having pricing isolated from everyone, but in the end, this pricing isolated, it will be connected through different bridges. And from now on, we will see the pros and cons of having pricing correlated to each one of the departments that we saw here. I will start to discuss the pros and cons about having pricing under the Department of Commercial Buying or Operation and Salesforce. By pros, so things that can have, that make sense from the perspective of learnings, of the perspective of having pricing areas close to the business, to the daily business itself. We can see that it's something that it brings value not only for the company, but also for the pricing people. Pricing analysts will be able to be close to these day-to-day activities, so they will be able to learn about the business and how the business works. And of course, it will also allows to have a clear vision on the margin components or the special deals, promo planning, space planning. It allows the pricing persons, the pricing analysts at this stage, if we discuss about pricing analysts, to have a 360 vision on how the business is working. Of course, if we look into the pricing analysts being close to category managers, they will have the opportunity to know the products, to understand the reason why the company is selling those products. So in the end, they will be super close to understand all the triggers between category management, but also the company targets and the company goals in long term. It allows also the pricing team to be close to the category managers and to be close to the cost components of the products. So they will know all the contract conditions that the company may have, and also they can be able to support and contribute to the negotiations because they will have both visions. They will have the vision not only on how the products are being negotiated with the suppliers, but also they will have the vision of competition. They will have the vision of the results of the prices to be able to bring more value into the negotiations. From the cons, so the opposite side, when we think about pricing being connected with the operations and sales department, of course, we can have in here as a con this lost within the details. If we think about a company that may have a lot of stores, like more than 200, 300 stores, we may have operational teams that will be spread across the country. And of course, these issues that may happen are different, and it can be from examples, daily examples from issues on a product within a store for a client. And the decision making sometimes is not clear because when we are facing the customers, of course, the major need, and if we think about the bonuses, the compensations for the sales force teams, normally are connected with the revenue. So the goal is to sell whatever the margin may be, whatever the price may be. And that's why, in the end, the discussion is always, this is too expensive. This article is too expensive. Let's take a look at the competition, and the competition may be super cheap compared with the organization price. So the tendency is to say that all players within the market are relevant players, so the price needs to be lower and lower and lower. And from this perspective, having the pricing team reporting to an operations department, it will lead the pricing team, for one hand, to be overwhelmed with these lack of capabilities to have this helicopter view and start to worry about specific issues that may happen. So the team, of course, needs to learn and to try to understand the causes, but they will not be firefighters every single day trying to understand why it's happening and solve it immediately. Because in the end, if we think about it, by having a decision of pricing a product within a store because of one client, this can be super different of the global pricing strategy that the company has. And this is the goal that we should have at the end of the day, is also to look at these cases as examples and as learning tools to be able to understand from the pricing strategy perspective if we need to change something or not. And it's exactly the same conclusion when we think about competition. Not all the players within the market are competitors for all of the products, for all of the assortments. You can study and you can do different analyses to understand if the competitors are relevant or not to position your prices with, and avoid the tendency to be able to have prices at the minimum level for all the assortment, for all the stores. This is something that it will bring you margin issues at the end of the day, and probably it will bring you value issues when we think about the value of the products and the value of the company. When we look at the commercial, in here we have the opposite scenario where you can have the decision making dependent on the category managers. So they will be the ones that have, in the end, the power to be able to define the prices of a product. But their focus, it's not exactly the same of the focus that we have within the operations. And when I say focus, I also talk about bonus and compensations. Normally, operations team have their compensations associated to revenue, but when we think about category managers, their compensation has a close gap to the margin management. And that's why here we have the opposite scenario. So they tend to have the prices not the cheapest prices of all, but try here to have the mixed assortment, the assortment being managed within a mixed way to be able to generate margin at the end of the day, but they don't have this focus of client price perception. And it can generate here also a different issue, which is that the category manager is someone who is responsible to understand the trends of the market, not only in terms of new products, but also in terms of movements that the competition may be doing, in terms of communication, new promotions, new ways of promoting the articles within stores or within websites. So category managers will be people that have a lot of tasks, a lot of things to do. And if we have the pricing team reporting to category managers, what it will happen is that if category managers have all of this power of deciding for a price, they will feel overloaded with a lot of tasks because pricing analysts will send them at a daily basis a report for all of those articles, probably at a store level, to have a decision on the final price. If we have an industry that is dynamic, that has dynamic pricing running, especially if we have a website, an online store, it will be impossible. It will be impossible that we have category managers looking at all of these reports at a daily level or at an hourly level, if we think about it on a dynamic way, and have this decision on which price should be associated to a product. In the end, what will happen is that if they start to look at this granular way, how prices should have, how articles should be priced, we lose one of the things that can be super relevant for the pricing team, which is the ability to price the products looking at the assortment mix. In some cases, if we think about category roles, and if we think about the ones that are more connected with the traffic, of course, in here we need to have prices aligned with the competition, but other cases we can have prices that are a bit more expensive and that are the ones connected with margin enhancers. Looking at the other departments that we have, that we may have pricing integrated, we can have finance, marketing, and BI. If we think about finance, it's good that the pricing team is also able to communicate or to be within the finance and controlling department because they will be super aware of the P&L and all the details being hit the negotiations, and allows to establish these clearly the pricing limits and also to forecast the pricing impacts because they will be aware not only of the results but also of the goals and the targets that the organization wants to achieve. But of course, in the end, this will result in having probably the pricing team super focused on the margin and trying to protect the margin and trying to protect the company metrics in order to comply with the forecasts. So fully pricing potential may not be addressed if we think about it in having pricing only focused on complying with the forecasts and connected with the finance department. When we think about marketing, marketing is traditionally where pricing should be, if we think about the theory. But in the end, of course, we can have marketing as the area which knows more about the customer. So it allows the pricing people and it allows the pricing team to be able to have access to different sources of information. Price perception is something relevant in here. So we stop in a certain way. We don't stop, but the focus, it will not be only on margin, on business metrics, on revenue, but we bring into the table the capabilities of understanding which are the top of mind KPIs that lead the customer to have a good price perception of a company. And it allows the pricing team as well to have access to qualitative information, brand awareness, a lot of qualitative information that normally the marketing have, to be able to look into that and incorporate it into the pricing strategy, as well as allows to have a close relation with the CRM departments and to understand exactly which are the products, which are the areas where the clients have and pay more attention. So the ones that we should be focusing on. Opposite side. Within the opposite side of having the price department into the marketing department, it means that we will have people working together that belong to different worlds. So in here, pricing for the marketing team is not allow me to say, a sexy area. So it will be super complex. It will be something that the marketing team will not be super familiarized because they are not mathematicians. So pricing needs these mathematical models, which sometimes, if we have pricing and marketing team within the same department, pricing team is seen as outsiders and someone that spends a lot of time with mathematics and does not have like super fun discussions about how marketing can work in social media, because in the end, this is something that can contribute to the pricing strategy, but it's not the major focus of the price itself. And when we think about BI and data teams, so it's super relevant and it's critical that these teams communicate, as well as the others, but these teams should communicate with the pricing team, because if the company is matured enough and they will be starting to build pricing tools, or they decide to buy pricing tools, they will need to have the data as accessible and clear as possible. So as a pro, we can look at being within or closest to the BI and data department, because it will give the pricing team to be able to support, to build and manage all the databases that will serve as the base to build the pricing decisions, and as well, in the end, to understand and to have historical data, to be able to run statistical models, to be able to understand pricing elasticities, product elasticities, and perform different types of analysis that will contribute to the pricing strategy. But, and we always have a but on these pros and cons, when we have pricing department within the BA and the VI and data department, where it happens is that from the other departments, when they look into the pricing area, they start to see pricing as a super complex topic. They will start to understand pricing analysts as geeks, and they will be afraid of not being super clear and not being super familiarized with which are the models that are being built, and it gets too technical. And it's something that if we think about the other areas, and let me bring again the example of the category managers, if they don't understand, if the pricing tends to build and tends to have these black boxes within the pricing management, people will start to lose trust. Not because everything may be wrong, but just because they don't understand. And of course, they will be afraid to say, I don't understand. So this can be something that when we are thinking about in which department pricing should report, we should take into account all these pros, all these cons, and try to understand from the perspective of pricing maturity where pricing department should be. But of course, we can have the organization structuring and saying that, okay, we will have one single pricing department. It will not be reporting to any one of the organization, to any other department. It will be the pricing department itself. So it's autonomous. It will have their own KPIs. Of course, these KPIs adjusted to the company KPIs. This should be also aligned with KPIs that we have for the different areas. It will be also a department that will be exempt. So it will not tend to look at margin or to revenue and to focus on one of these areas due to bonus. No, it will be a department without any BS and anything that will tend to have the efforts in one way or in another way. And of course, it will be a department focused on achieving targets, because at the end, and as I mentioned previously, the KPIs will be adjusted to the company goals. So if the target is connected with a market share or margin or client price and brand perception, sales and revenue, stock rotation, a lot of different targets, what the pricing team will do is to balance and to try within all the assortment to achieve those targets and to build this balance between the prices of all the assortment to try to achieve at maximum, of course, all of the targets that I've mentioned. But of course, we can always have the opposite side, and the opposite side is correlated with having a price department that can be isolated. So it's critical that we have communication channels If these communication channels are not clear, of course, it may happen that different operational decisions that comes from other teams, can be commercial team, marketing, operations. For example, for marketing, if we think about promotions from the commercial team, if we have new products that are being implemented within the company, if the pricing team is isolated and is not aware of this, of course, this will be generating unexpected impacts, and it will be something that for sure it will affect the pricing strategy implementation. And of course, the trust, and this trust is more connected with the ability of having sometimes the pricing team doing things that no one is aware of, and how are they doing in terms of processes, in terms of reporting, in terms of strategical variables. If pricing team is doing that, but is not able to explain or is not able to communicate, it may generate trust issues. So what we are saying is that if the company decides to have their own pricing department isolated from the other departments from this reporting perspective, but of course, creating the bridges to be able to work with everyone, because pricing in the end affects all the areas of an organization. And if we have a pricing manager or a pricing director, these are the topics that this person should take care of. The most important one is to always have communication as the top of mind, the ability to be available, to explain, to support, to listen, to advise to all of the people within the organization is critical. Not because we want people to be comfortable with the pricing strategy or be aware of the pricing strategy, but sometimes this availability allows to have deeper discussions. And also it allows to learn, it allows us to have all the issues and all the problems as sources of information. And it allows the most important thing, which is to have pricing implementing continuous improvement as a driver to excellence within an organization. And in the end, the goal of this webinar, what we have here is how to unlock this value. So what we are saying is that pricing can be part of different departments or having own pricing department, and companies tend to assess if it's something that can be bringing value into them by having a pricing tool in place. And it can be a pricing tool that they will buy or that they will start to build internally. But in the end, what we want is exactly what we discussed within the first slide, which is effectiveness across the organization. And in here, I'm bringing you an example on how pricing and pricing tools can contribute to these shared values between the different departments. So if we think about the structure, and if we think about the pricing tool that can contribute to this structure, of course, by having a pricing tool in place, it will allow us to provide clarity. So the prices and all the prices from the articles will be available in one place. We will not have different responsible persons that will have different Excel files within their laptops and that no one knows. It will be one place where everything is in there. It's controlled by the pricing team, whatever the pricing team may be, we need department. And that allows to understand why are we pricing this article this way. It will have the ability to provide more transparency as well, because it's not only to be able to check which is the price on a certain article within a certain store, but also to try to understand what were the reasons behind that price. And also the next step is to understand exactly the results of this price. So the support analytics that we may have in terms of new pricing tools or pricing tools to be able to assess within this continuous improvement way, which is the results or the uplifts and how pricing can influence business metrics, it contributes to this organizational chart, because in the end, we will have a clearness and transparency of a pricing tool where everyone, regardless of the department, is able, and of course, according to their role, to double check, to have the information and to understand. When we think about the systems, by having a pricing tool and by having pricing being worked within an organization, of course, we have the ability within the systems to start to look at data. So of course, data flows, all the ETL processes, and these data inputs are critical. And again, it's something that by starting to look at pricing as a new journey, it will stop and prevent that we have Excel files within a laptop of one person that if it goes to on vacation, we don't know what is happening. It enforces the company to think about data within a different way. And this is something, and that's why it's connected to the organization itself, that it will not only be something that will it will be contributing to the pricing value. It will be something that allows other departments, stock management, category management, operations, marketing, to beneficiate from this. Normally, it can start with pricing, so pricing as the driver to build these systems, to support these systems, and to build these bridges between the different departments based on data. But it is something, if the companies are starting to work with, it will be bringing benefits to all of the areas within the organization and allows the pricing management, so this day-to-day pricing, to be more effective. When we think about the strategy, so pricing strategy, and within a pricing tool, it will be configured in one place. So everyone will be aware on which is the pricing policies, which is the pricing strategy that we have. In terms of competencies, in terms of skills, a pricing tool is something that allows us to have all the information in there with all the strategies. So the price calculations, in the end, the price is being calculated based on the strategy that we are inputting in there. But it's something that we need to understand the different roles and the different levels of complexity. If we think about, for example, someone from the marketing, if this person needs to understand something from the pricing area, probably it's not with the same level of detail that a category manager needs or that someone from finance needs. So this ability of having pricing tools contributing to these skills, it's based on the roles. So we can have different users with different roles, not visualization only, but also contribution to the tool. And it can be relevant to bring more value into this. In terms of style, we can have different leaders, we can have different decision-making processes. And of course, when we have a pricing tool, we can also configure that in there. In the end, the pricing decision and how to price a product, it's something that can be managed by the pricing team, or it can be something, for example, connected with the margin limits. And that's why it can be connected with the category managers, and they are the ones who will have the final okay to go. But it's possible to automatize this. It's possible to look at these limits, at the margin limits, for example, by article store, with the different layers of configuration, and input these layers of configuration into the pricing tool. And this decision making, although it can be super complex across the organization, we are able to configure them, to configure these triggers, and in the end, the price recommendation, it will be connected also with these parameters. And last, if we think about staff, if we think about people and the time, of course, that people dedicated to different tasks, what we think about when we think about a pricing tool is the ability not only to have a fast and clean process regarding the price recommendations being set up, but also the ability of providing people time to be dedicated to valuable tasks instead of having pricing analysts or category managers or someone from the operations team to lose half of a day to set up different reports because they have different data sources and they need to bring all these information together, cross-joining these with the strategy, with the pricing strategy, and in the end, do manually mathematical exercises to get into the perfect price for the product. That's not the goal. So the goal of the pricing tool is also to bring more time to the teams and to be able to allow people to focus on valuable tasks instead of losing time only setting up the reports itself. So in the end, what we have here with this schema is that if we have a pricing department that has a clear vision on how to work the prices, regardless of if it is on the category management side, if it is on the operational side, or if it is the only one single department, if this department has access to have a pricing tool, this tool contributes not only in the end to the uplifts. Of course, this uplift can be connected with margin, can be connected with revenue, can be connected with the market share, but also contributes to the most effectiveness way to manage an organization because it touches different points. It helps the organization to build different bridges between the departments. And also it allows the organization to work within these shared values. And sometimes pricing is the open door to different needs of the organization. We also discussed between data and between, for example, different processes and systems that can bring more value to the organization that can be impacted by the pricing team, or it can impact the pricing team, but also and always within a positive way. That's it. Thank you. I don't know if you have any questions. Let me double check it. So I have here 2 questions for now. I will start with the first one. How can business understand that the current pricing structure in the organization is no longer good enough and should be changed? Of course, the first answer in here is connected with results. So we measure the price, we measure the uplift result, we measure the results at the end of, I will say, a year or a month, and understand if we are better than the previous times. But it's relevant also to implement one thing, regardless of where pricing may be within an organization. Establish a feedback flow, trying to have this at a most, I would say in a month to every 2 months, to listen to people, to try to understand if, not only based on results, but also to provide feedback for the different areas, also to try to have different sessions, different workshops for people to be able to bring their doubts, their suggestions, also for people to not be afraid of pricing tools or pricing exercises that can be more connected with when we think about statistics, so with machine learning. Normally this can be a black box and can be something that worries people that don't know in reality or that don't have a technical job. And these feedback sessions allow us to understand if we have the pricing within the correct department or if we should move pricing to a different department to be able to have a more consolidated position within the organization, especially being open to communicate with the other departments and to be able to have this solution built in the end that will bring more results. So I would say, to answer this question in a short way, first, double check the results, double check the uplifts that we get from the pricing strategy. If they are not good enough, let's listen to people. Let's bring feedback into the table and let's try to understand what is happening and if something needs to change. The other question that I have here, compared to other industries, how pricing team structure in grocery retail is typically different. If we think about grocery can have different, can be a little bit different because of the negotiation part. It's too dynamic and can be relevant that the pricing team is able to have, I will not say directly to participate. If it is possible, it can bring more value. But the pricing team should be close to the negotiation process and try to understand what are the forecasts and the projections that will happen for the next quarter to be able to provide value and to be able to assess if something needs to be changed within the pricing strategy. So for grocery, it's critical that this transparency between what is happening between the category manager and the suppliers, this value can be bring into the pricing team so that this assessment, if where are the pricing strategy right now and if the pricing strategy is aligned with the future goals or not, and if the pricing strategy itself that is being set up can contribute to the negotiation itself, and we can have like a bridge between both areas, and we can have value being translated into both areas, the negotiation area and the price of the product in the end. I don't have any more questions, so thank you so much, and have a great day.